Back in 2009, Tropicana spent about $35 million redesigning their carton packaging. And you probably heard this story before. They took a pretty recognizable package that had a very iconic straw in an orange motif. And the design agency they worked with took everything that was unique about it and just squashed that all down. And they made a very generic looking, almost store brand like package. And when they rolled this out, customers hated it. Within about 2 months, it's estimated they lost about $30 million worth in sales. A $30 million loss off of a $35 million design project. And after about 2 months, Tropicana said, you know what? We're going back to the old packaging. People can't see our product on the shelf. We're losing sales left and right. We got to go back to what we know works. And within like the last year, they did a much more thoughtful and less extreme redesign that went over just fine because it kept all of those consistent elements that people recognized. And they didn't lose tens of millions of dollars off of a failed package rollout. I've been thinking about this a lot recently because I did a couple of videos on brand logos, and in a very tongue-in-cheek way, which not everyone who saw the videos kind of picked up on. But I pushed back on this idea that especially for a smaller brand, it's very important for the brand logo to explain what a company does. That's a bad logo because it doesn't tell me what the company does. That's a bad logo because it doesn't tell me what the company does. There's a lot of people who are maybe interested in marketing. I hope they're not actually working much in marketing because this is so far off base, but they say, yes, a brand logo has to explain what a company does. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. And when I pushed back against this, a lot of people got the joke of what I was doing and many did not. But since making it, I've been thinking a lot about what is really important to a brand's visual identity and a logo and everything that goes with that, and how important it can be for a business of any size to get that logo and brand identity right, and what you can do to go about creating one no matter what size you are. So we're going to talk about all that today and more on Brand Sauce. Welcome to Brand Sauce, where we make strategic marketing simple and a little spicy so that companies and marketers of all sizes can focus on doing the right things and doing the right things well to grow their brand. I'm your host, Joe. I have over 15 years of marketing experience in agencies as freelance and in-house, and over that time, I have picked up a lot of insights on how to do marketing really well, and through trial and error, how not to do it well, how to do it very, very poorly. Before we get into talking about brand logos and identities and how to go about creating them, let's open up the old mailbag. If you have a question for me, please send an email to me at brandsaucepod, all one word, at gmail.com. All right, today's message. This person writes in, and they just said simply, I switched my job to a corporate marketing from agency, and I hate it. Is this common? No one emailed this to me, but I actually just saw this on Reddit not too long ago, and it was very unsurprising to see a lot of the feedback in the comments. So this person had been in an agency and they went in-house and corporate, and what they were experiencing and what people said is that yes, when you go from agency to corporate, you are perhaps going to lose maybe some of the creative flexibility and certainly the variety and speed that you might be used to in the agency world, and trading that off for more control, but also more guardrails, but also more job security that comes with corporate marketing. So personally, I made the switch from agency to corporate marketing just a little over 5 years ago. I felt a lot of the same things. It was like, yeah, this is a very different kind of structure. I'm using a lot of the same skills, but certainly the pace of things is a lot slower than when you're working in an agency. You do have more ownership, you have more guardrails to work within, and you have a lot more stakeholder management than you may have in an agency role, depending on what your function is. And yeah, for a lot of people, especially if they're maybe a little bit earlier in the career, that can be a really rough transition. I think for me personally, I was at a point in my life, my wife and I had a baby on the way. I was getting a little bit older. I was like, I think I've got to kind of the end of maybe where I'm going to be able to be successful in the agency world. It was time for a change for me. And I was ready for it, and I understood what all that was going to mean for me, at least to some extent. So it worked out okay for me. And honestly, like, I'm really happy in my full-time role. I still have the time and the energy on evenings and weekends to do this type of work, which I really enjoy. I do have a lot more ownership over the work that I do and that my team does now, and certainly have a lot more stability maybe than someone in the agency world would have, especially over the last couple of years with economic uncertainty, with the pandemic. Both my wife and I come from the agency world, and a lot of people we know went through some really challenging things with layoffs and such in 2020. And we see some of that kind of happening again, even now with the kind of like economic uncertainty that kind of like we're seeing not only in our country, but just kind of globally as well. So yes, there's trade-offs. And a lot of people in the comments said, yeah, there's things that I miss about the agency world, but there's things that I like about the corporate world. And it's basically just like, where are you at personally and what you're trying to accomplish? But a lot of people tried to assure this person that certainly it was not strange for them to be feeling kind of a sense of loss as they went into a more corporate role, and gave them some suggestions on kind of like how to maybe continue to find that spark that they missed in the agency world, and also kind of like enjoy some of the new comforts that they have within a more corporate marketing. So I'm certainly like empathetic to someone who is feeling a little bit of remorse over a significant job change. And I hope this person kind of like finds something that they really enjoy within the corporate world where they can make that work for them. Or if they do decide they want to go back to the agency world or freelance or a different path, that they can make that work for themselves as well. There's always going to be trade-offs. Things are always going to be different. If you have any questions for me though, please do not hesitate. Send me an email, brandsaucepod@gmail.com. I'm happy to answer any of your questions about marketing careers, about marketing strategies, about anything else related to marketing in a future episode. Okay, let's get to the main meat of the episode here. One of the most important things that marketing does, and that it should do for a business and for a brand, if we really boil it down, is to build memory. Can people remember your brand and pull it out of a list of a bunch of competing brands when they are in a position to buy from your category? Now, there's a lot of ways to build memory, to support memory, but one that gets a lot of attention because there are so many different ways to go about it is the logo and the visual identity of a brand. And certainly within kind of my algorithms within TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, I get a lot of visual design in there. I'm not a designer myself, but I do appreciate design. I like seeing the different ways people approach it. There's lots of interesting discussions about how different trends from different generations have kind of shifted the way that brand design has evolved. But it's an easy one to obviously like look at literally, but also always invites a lot of different opinions. And it's always interesting to see people who have what I consider to be the wrong opinion about it. And in my mind, that wrong opinion is, what is the purpose of a brand visual identity and a logo? There are so many people who say like, it's important to educate people, like especially for a small business. And you'll see like, if you are starting a hamburger restaurant, you got to have a hamburger in your logo. That's not true. That's not true, by the way. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But you know, in all of my experience, education is something you do through marketing. You don't need to be literal in your brand visual identity because that's not the most important thing it can do for you. A very strong visual identity is going to make you memorable to your target audience, and also it's going to help you stand apart from all of your competitors. So if you start including a very literal representation of what your category is, that actually in a way is going to, even if your colors are different, make you just mesh and blend in with everyone else within your category, and also maybe hold you back from developing your company into more of a brand because it's just a category player. So that's not to say, though, that you can't include some sort of a representation of what you do in your brand visual identity if there's an ownable twist on it. A few that I think of are Burger King and how it has the word mark of Burger King and then they've made it into a burger, or Sherwin-Williams, where it's not just a paint can, it's a can of paint literally pouring over the entire globe. Very metaphorical, very kind of fun and a little tongue-in-cheek. And I love not only just how tongue-in-cheek it is, but also that Sherwin-Williams has been using that for decades upon decades. So very consistent. They've been able to build out a lot of memory based on the way that they have used that logo and that visual identity over time. And also another very ownable example is the old Tropicana with the straw in the orange. That's not literally how you drink orange juice, but what a wonderful visual metaphor for what Tropicana delivers compared to the competition. And when they moved to that packaging in 2009 that just had a glass of orange juice and a picture of an orange, it's very literal. It's just a category player. It's very commoditized. And when your visuals are just supporting the commodity of the category you play in, it's very hard for you to elevate or turn it into anything beyond that. Now, it's not to say that there is only one way to go about building a brand identity or a brand logo. In one of the subsequent follow-up videos I made to the tongue-in-cheek one, I made kind of a grid to just sort of map out where different logos might sit and what they can represent and communicate to people. So you can have a very polished logo, you can have something that looks very lo-fi, and you can have an axis on that. I map that out on the x-axis of this particular grid, and then like a very structured, intentional kind of like brand identity system versus something that didn't seem to have a whole lot of thought put into it. And depending where you land on that grid, if those are the axes we're going to use, you can very easily communicate with your visual identity the price point and the type of consumer you're going after. Are you going to be a luxury play within your category, or are you going to be more of a value play? And both, there's not a right or wrong, but depending on where you're trying to fit in with the category, having the wrong kind of visual look and feel can create dissonance that is going to make consumers confused about who you are and what you do. So if you're in a position where you need to build out a brand logo and a visual identity for whatever business you support, what kind of things do you need to consider and what you need to go into that? So there's a few things that I think, regardless of what size or what level of work is going to go into creating a visual identity, there's a few things that are going to be really important. And the first, obviously, is that primary logo. So what's the exact kind of like look and feel of that iconography and or your name and word mark? What's going to be the go-to thing that people are going to see in most use cases over and over again? You know, for Nike, that is the swoosh with the Nike underneath it. That's kind of like their primary logo. Then you can have a secondary logo. That's a version of the logo that might fit into different formats. So think about how a logo might look different if you put it on the back of a business card or in a tote bag. It's going to look pretty similar, but it might have a different little layout and a different shape. It could just be a word mark instead of the words and the iconography, but just giving you a little bit of flexibility depending on where you are using this visual identity to make sure that it fits the space that you're using it in. You could have a version of like a submark or a brand mark or even like a favicon for the website, and that's like a very small, simplified version of that logo that you can use like in an Instagram profile picture or a TikTok profile picture, something very small and tiny that it still indicates who you are, but doesn't have all of the pieces and elements that might make a primary logo too complex to put like on a t-shirt or in a social media profile. You can have, as a part of an overall visual identity system, a set of patterns to use in the backgrounds. Those can be very useful. I don't think that is a necessary, but that's a very nice to have. Obviously, you want to have a color palette to draw from. So what are all the different colors that go into the logos themselves, but how do you use other colors around those when you're thinking about a website, or if you're building out a menu or a brochure or making swag for your brand, or you're going to paint a food truck? Like, how are all those different colors supposed to work? And with those colors, it's very helpful, and this is a pretty mandatory thing to have as you're building a visual identity, a style guide. So what are the typefaces that you're going to use in different formats? What are the colors you're going to use when and where? Those different logos that you have, the primary, the secondary, the brand mark, the word mark, the submark. How do you use all those different things to make something that's consistent so you're not recreating things from scratch over and over again? And another very nice to have as a part of that style guide might be any type of additional template. Like, here's a couple of standard Instagram things that you might use. If you're going to do a piece of print material, here's the standard way that we will lay those things out. No matter what level of service you get to, those are going to be the things that are going to be very important to come out of that visual identity process, so that you're able to then take everything that's been done and put it out in the world in a consistent, repeatable manner, so you can build that memory and build that distinction from the category, so you can hopefully use that to propel yourself to more and more success. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk about who to reach out to and when, depending on the state of your business and what you need and what your budget is. Before that, quick word from our sponsors. If you're a certain type of guy, you might like having your laundry be soft, but you don't want to feel soft. And that's where AlphaSoft comes in. You know, let's not think about lavender. Let's not think about spring meadow. If you've ever cleaned a garage and you'd want to bottle up that smell, but you didn't know how, that's where AlphaSoft comes in. These are the best fabric softener sheets for men with masculine smells. If you want to make sure that people know that you're a manly man, AlphaSoft's got you covered. With unique scents like catcher's mitt, smells like Little League glory, broken in leather, nostalgia of dusty summer afternoons, or new tools. Because there's nothing like the scent of fresh metal and rubber, of things that are just going to sit on the shelf. Or a clean garage, you know, that blend of WD-40, maybe a little bit of grass clippings, and Eventually I'll get around to it. Etude. Or even pellet smoker, if you want your laundry to smell like you just spent 8 hours over a brisket that got a little too dried out because you got a little too drunk with Uncle Ron, we got the scent for you. So we're not saying those sheets are going to help you grow a beard or help you change your motor oil, but your clothes are going to make you smell like you could. So the next time you want to do laundry and you want people to know that you're a man because you got something to prove, AlphaSoft has you covered. Smell like a man, feel like a legend. You can use code BRANDSAUCE for 15% off your first order. This is not a real ad. This is an absurd product. This is ridiculous. I'm going to keep doing fake ads until I get actual sponsors. And even if I get actual sponsors, I might keep still doing the fake ads. Let's get back to the show. Okay, your business needs a visual identity, or they need an updated one. Whom do you reach out to, and why do you reach out to these different levels of partners, okay? If you're going through a brand visual identity, you can do it yourself. You can reach out to a freelancer, or you can go with a design firm. And here's kind of the different things that you should consider when you're making that decision of whom to reach out to. All right, bootstrapping and doing it yourself. This is a great option if you're actually a designer. But I mean, for most people, we're not designers. I'm not a designer. If you're starting out though with a business and you have basically nothing to leverage and you have very little capital to use, and importantly, if the brand visuals aren't going to be a key part of the product that you sell, like if you're in the B2B space or you're a photographer, the brand logo and the visual identity, it's of course important, but it's not the thing that you're actually selling. If you're getting into streetwear and you're not a designer, I do not think this is the right option for you. Canva as an option here, it is far from ideal, but it is a path, especially if you are going in to using a Canva template or updating a Canva template with the expectation that you're going to change it and update it in the future. And if it's not going to be too hard for you to update all of your brand visuals in the future with a better visual identity than you can get out of Canva out of the box. Can you find a friend or someone starting up their design career who can help you for a nominal price? It is an option. If you do have this available to you as an option, you need to go into it with a grain of salt. You may not get the best possible work, and still in the future, you may feel the need to update with a little bit more professional help. But I would say if you do have someone who does design, or you are connected with someone who is starting up a career in design, this could be an option for you to get maybe slightly better work than you could get out of Canva for, a minimal or nominal price. Should you use Fiverr in this case? I will say the problem with Fiverr is that, yes, it can be very cheap. I've seen design packages available there that are like $100, $150. But when you go with Fiverr, you are not going to get a very robust onboarding process. The person on the other end of that, they don't care about really understanding who you are and what you're trying to communicate and who your audience is and who your competition is. They're just taking an order and they're trying to get it done as quickly as possible. So you're going to have minimal onboarding, and you're going to have most likely very minimal revisions depending on whom you pick and who you work with there. I think it's also very likely that someone you work with on Fiverr is going to be pulling from a lot of different templates, maybe not dissimilar from what you could find on Canva. Not saying they're working in Canva, but the same level of kind of like starting things that they would pull from. It maybe is not going to feel that different from what you could find in other places. And also too, you have no idea if the person you hire on Fiverr, if those examples that they have are an actual representation of the quality and caliber of work that you would get in your project. It's possible the examples they're sharing are things that they have done. It is also possible they are sharing examples of things that they have not actually done. Yes, Fiverr's an option out there, but I would say going in cold, I would not recommend that for basically anyone looking to develop a brand visual identity, unless they're hiring someone through Fiverr whom they have some other way of understanding and knowing that person and their work and can feel confident they're going to get a little bit more service than what you might expect otherwise. Okay, so you can do it yourself or do it with Canva. The next level up, I would say an individual freelancer. And if you have maybe minimal, I would say minimum 2K and maybe like 10K to invest in a brand visual design process. If your business is established, and hopefully if it's growing, and if you've started to invest more in media and collateral that can help build and reinforce memory and association for your brand, this might be a good option. Now, again, you need to find the right freelancer, you need to vet the right freelancer. Having any type of recommendations or referrals would certainly be helpful to give you a little bit of confidence that the person that you're going to be working with is going to be able to deliver what you need. But when you're working with an individual freelancer like this, someone who you're hiring outside of a platform like Fiverr, I think you can feel hopefully a little bit more confident in the caliber of work that you're going to get, and that the examples that they have are more representative of what you're actually going to get out of that process. So again, if you have up to like $10,000 that you can comfortably invest in a brand visual identity, if your business is growing, if you are starting to invest more of your resources into paid media and into collateral, where that visual identity is going to be more important to build and reinforce your brand within the sea of competition you're playing in, that's when I think starting to think about a minimally an individual freelancer, a solo designer, is going to be the place for you to go. And then if you have a lot of resources and you have serious funding and backing and revenue that you can invest into this, and I'm saying like minimum 20K, but up to like $150,000. If you have that much money to invest in a visual identity, that's when you start going to like a more established design firm that has like a staff and a team that's going to help build out a visual model. This is for proven business models, for growing businesses. If you're looking to steal share within a category and you are already investing in media and collateral, and you're going to be able to invest in media and collateral to support this new visual identity and that changeover with your existing customers and potential customers, that's when this design firm space might be right for you. This is going to be probably, I imagine, a small subset of people who are coming across this podcast, and that's okay. But when you're looking at established design firm, you're looking most likely at the low six figures to get a good design system. Now, the hope is that the quality that you get out of a design firm is going to scale with the additional amount of money that you would be charged by an individual designer. All the things to consider if you're thinking bootstrap, if you're thinking individual designer design firm. How important is a built-out visual brand identity to your business? I would say a mom and pop restaurant or a B2B tech firm. Having a very established and clean visual identity for the mom and pop restaurant is actually probably potentially counterproductive. But for, tech-focused B2B company that's going to be based on relationships, on referrals, it could be a nice to have, but if you're not a large company or if you're just starting out, it may not be as important to have a really strong, robust visual identity. Certainly consider how much money do you have to invest in not only creating that visual identity, but also appropriately supporting it through all the different media channels available to you. And I'm not talking just about sending an email. I'm talking about doing an actual paid media campaign to build that brand. Are you able to invest in that to support the work that you would come out of working with a designer or design firm? Who are your competitors? What does their level of design kind of aesthetic and systems look like? Are they operating at a really high level and you're down here? Do you need to meet where they are at to be in parity in your category? Again, how much are you investing in marketing and advertising? If all of your business is just referral and word of mouth, again, I'm thinking more of kind of like the photographer, good visual branding is going to be really nice to have, but far from necessary for you to continue to grow your brand. There's other things that are going to be more important to building out that type of business compared to growing a streetwear brand. And also consider how hard would it be for you to rebrand in the future. This is when we get to more of the brick and mortar or apparel or things where there is inventory that you need to order and brand and have that be a part of your brand. Or if you have a brick and mortar restaurant or a food truck, changing those things out can be very expensive. Long before I was in the agency space, I worked a very glamorous job in a sign company in Chicago. And one of the things we did very consistently, and this was before the 2008 recession, was we did bank buyouts and bank mergers. So one regional bank buys another regional bank, and basically the larger regional bank rebrands all the other ones. That's a really expensive process. It costs a lot of money just to do the signs on the buildings. And I'm not even talking about doing wraps on the ATMs, new merch and collateral for the staff, all of the printed materials. There is a lot that can go into supporting a rebrand, again, even before you're talking about marketing. So if it's going to be very hard or very expensive to do a rebrand in the future, it's probably worth it to spend a little bit more in building out your brand visual identity now so that you can reliably use that for a longer period of time. And as you're starting to get into vetting design vendors, whether this is an individual designer, a small design team, a full design firm, anywhere in that scale of like 2K up to, 150K and more. Certainly you want to understand what is the process and timeline for building out a visual identity. How specific is that process built out of like, we're going to get you onboarded. We're going to talk about your requirements. We're going to show you a mood board. We're going to go through a couple of concepts. How many concepts are they going to plan on showing you? How many rounds of revisions are there going to be? What is that briefing process? Like, what are all the different things they want to learn about you and your business to make sure that the visual identity options that they create for you are going to be what is going to be useful for your business and helpful for your business and in line with what you want? Or are they hopefully going to maybe push you a little bit out of your comfort zone if they see opportunities to do a different direction that didn't initially kind of present itself to you that would actually help you grow your business? What are they going to do in that regard? What's the full suite of deliverables that they're going to create for you? Hopefully everything we mentioned earlier about like a primary and secondary logo, word mark, brand mark, all those different things. But are they also going to build out templates for print collateral, for social and digital templates? Are they going to build out a website UX system as a part of everything they're doing? What's an add-on charge for either extra rounds of revisions if you need to do that, or if you want to add on additional deliverables, like if there are other things you want designed you're going to use that maybe aren't a part of that additional thing? What's that kind of a la carte menu look like? And then lastly, like, what are the case studies that they have? How relevant are they to your business, to the aesthetic that you think is going to be important to you? Does it seem like they're going to be able to do what you want and how you want it done, or in a way that's going to help you truly be distinct and memorable in your category and for your consumers? And lastly, just as you're, looking at kind of like what is going to be important for a visual identity, you really got to look not only at what is going to be relevant to your customers, but in terms of distinction, look at your category. Are there any common colors that people are using? Are there common cliches that they're using? If you're talking about a pizza restaurant, there's going to be a lot of red and white and green. There's going to be pizza. There's going to be a guy with a mustache holding the pie. Like, there's things that are signaling pizza that are not going to be ownable to you. Are there specific objects that are used? Are there specific typefaces that are used? And just general aesthetics and vibes? You got to look at all of those things very, very scientifically, because what you don't want to do within your visual identity is have something that's going to either just be category promoting instead of like distinctly ownable to you, or something that's going to be confused with your category competitors. If you're using those cliches and some of those standard things, you will get blended in. You will get confused with your competitors. Can you be different and memorable and meaningful with your visuals in a way that everything else you surround your business with and all the marketing and all the other work you do that's going to help you stand out to your consumers? Because again, you go back to that Tropicana example and my goodness, they had something that was very iconic and a really interesting, surprising metaphor. And the reason it was memorable is because it was a great metaphor, the straw in the orange. And when they abandoned that, the brand completely collapsed because what they went to was not distinct. It was not ownable. It was very generic and cliche. And in all your marketing and certainly in your brand and visuals, if there's anything you don't want to be, it's something that's going to be confused with something else. If you have more questions about visual branding and strategies, please send me an email at brandsaucepod@gmail.com. I'm probably going to talk about this more within social, on Instagram, on TikTok, and on YouTube. You can follow me on Blue Sky if you're over there too. I've been reposting my stuff over there. I hope that wherever you're at in your business and wherever you are hoping to go, that you are finding ways within your visual identity and within your marketing to be distinct and to be memorable, because those are the ways you're going to grow. Keep it spicy out there. Talk to you next time. Bye.